All right, says we're live. I'm going to talk today about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a superpower. And I just think this is so appropriate right now because we've got all this stuff going on. And now I live in Canada, you know that. And I use this brick wall background, ooh, yeah, for a reason. Because sometimes our lives feel like we're up against the wall. There was a song on an Alan Parsons album called Try Anything. No, Try Anything Once. That was, I forgot. Oh, Bruce Hornsby in the Range. I don't remember what it was, but it was an album that when it came out on CD, so that tells you how old it is, with all these guys hanging upside down. But the album came out, or the CD came out, was 24 karat gold leaf. So instead of normally what's inside those, it was 24 karat gold, and the CD was expensive, but it was a spectacular album. And there was a song on there called Back Against the Wall. You know, and it talked about the feeling of having your back against the wall. Well, most of the time we don't do anything until we feel like our back's against the wall, like we have no choice. We're dead if we don't take action. And we do that, and we do it over and over again. And I'm going to talk about forgiveness today, but I want to talk about it in the context of this back against the wall. I get a chance. I get the super amazing blessing of talking to lots of people every week. New people, wonderful people, capable people, people that are either sometimes in deep struggle or sometimes in great success. I've got friends that are worth 10, 20, 30, 50 million. I have some friends that are centimillionaires, 2, 3, 4, 500 million. You know, the level of happiness, whether you've got 20,000 or 20 million, doesn't depend on the money. It depends on a lot of other things. And you know what one of them is? What we're going to talk about today. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. It is a superpower that most people never develop, but you have this superpower. Now, in all the superhero stories, you know, some people have this superpower and some people have that, you know, the X-Men, this one had this and this one had that. And in the Marvel comic, let's see, what was it that had Phil Coulson? Oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, people that went through that process each came out with a different superpower. Superpowers you have. I don't know what you're doing with them, but superpowers you have. Sounds like Yoda. Superpowers you have. That's a crappy Yoda imitation, but whatever. You have them, and one of the ones you have is forgiveness. Now, whether or not you've developed it, I don't know, but I can tell you that making a choice to use your superpower forgiveness will make you $1 million. It will make you happy. It will make you healthy. It will make you have the great love of your life. Like people here, and they're looking for the easy button to get rich in the bank account. So I said $1 million, or I said the love of your life, or I said healthy. It can do all of those things if you develop it and develop it in concert with some other stuff. You don't get to push the easy button and have gold bars on the doorstep or stand up and scream at the sky, I forgive everybody, and have all your problems solved. That's not what I mean, so don't hear that. But here's why forgiveness is so important and so hard. Okay, let's take the example of someone who's damaged you in some way, maybe severely. Maybe they betrayed you and took all your money, or maybe it was a partner and they were unfaithful to you and left the relationship, or maybe parents abused you, or an uncle or an aunt, or, you know, some terrible thing happened. So you were fully and freely and totally and uglily, whatever that is, terribly betrayed by someone who was supposed to be trustworthy. You say, how can I ever forgive that? Well, in order to understand that, forgiveness isn't equated with justice. Justice and forgiveness have nothing to do with each other. Someone getting, quote, justice, whatever that is, for their mistakes, number one, it's not our responsibility. And number two, it has nothing to do with me being able to forgive them or you forgiving others. If I don't forgive, all I'm doing is carrying rocks in my backpack and drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. Those are unrelated. So when I say forgiveness is a superpower, here's what I mean. If I learn to forgive everyone everything, which I do and I have, and I claim it boldly and without reservation. And it took a bleeding lot of work to get there, but getting there has brought me total freedom. I am no longer burdened by negative feelings toward anyone for anything. Okay, and that superpower is worth developing. That means there's not a single person that I look at and think, in any way. That person, I hope they, get tarred and feathered, or they never should have done that, or I can never forgive them. I never am burdened with that terrible set of emotions. So I don't have those rocks, and there's a way to do that. And if you want to know how, and you want to get there and enjoy the freedom that I now experience, and that others do too, you may have done that, I don't know, then get a hold of me. This is an invitation. Don't sit on that anger and frustration. I'm doing this because, there was an election a few days ago, at least in the U.S., and Joy and I live in Canada, but we're U.S. citizens, so we pay a lot, and we voted and all the rest. And, 50-50. Half the people voted for this and half the people voted for that, and slightly more than half on one side, so somebody won. But there's this whole litany of gloating and rage, that is pouring out. Forgiveness is what we need to move forward. You and I, we don't have the right to administer justice, but we do have the freedom to dump the pain. I don't have any negativity toward anyone for anything anymore. I used to have it. It used to run my life. It used to control me. I used to wonder when people were going to get their comeuppance and when the things that people deserved, at least in my mind, were going to finally come down on their heads. And I don't need to worry about that anymore. For two reasons. One, it's not my job. It's not my assignment. And two, I don't want to carry that rock. I don't want to carry that pain. And since I've learned to release it, I am free. Now that's forgiving others of stuff. If you want to know how to do that, get a hold of me because it's worth every effort. I wake up free. I never, not even one time in any day ever go through a moment where I'm thinking, I wish, that negative, you know what it's like. All right. Thing number 2. Forgiving yourself. Now, for me, this was the hardest one. I made lots of mistakes. I was raised a certain way. I had plans for my life, and I wanted to have a family and all the things that are good with that, and I was going to raise my kids good and be a great dad and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't manage to do much of that. I did have a family, but I had 3 failed relationships, and I have 10 beautiful, wonderful children that I love to death. But I failed them in many ways. I ended up being a drug addict and failed 3 marriages and on and on. So there's lots of turmoil. So I hated myself until I attempted suicide and was a drug addict and buried everything with alcohol and cocaine and a list of other things that don't matter but is long. And I couldn't forgive myself. But you know what happened because of that? I was useless. I was in such pain emotionally all the time that I couldn't do anything in the present, and all the things that were long over, they were in the past, and every day that went by, they went further in the past. And finally, starting in 2007, it's now 17 years, gratefully, I cleaned up my life, got my shit together, and moved forward. And then still carried this awesome, horrific monster rock of, I can't forgive myself, never, never, never. This would have been different, that would have been different. Look at this, I've caused this, I've ruined the universe, is sometimes how big it felt. And you know what the outcome was? Is it rendered me useless in the present. Now, I've become a coach, a speaker, a worldwide authority on forgiveness, on growth, on high performance, on how to do things you don't know you can do. I've written 20 books on all this. But the only reason I have been able to do that is because I have mastered forgiveness. I have completely and absolutely forgiven myself. And doing that has allowed me to drop that rock. Now, again, there's a process. Forgiving others, forgiving yourself, there's a process. And if you don't know how to do it, I would invite you to get a hold of me and let's talk, because it's worth every effort. It'll change your life completely. It's a superpower. One of my declarations is I am forgiveness, carrying no judgment, anger, loathing, frustration toward anyone for anything, including myself. Do you know how free that is? Now, I have to understand, forgiveness isn't pretending away things. Forgiveness isn't acting like they didn't happen. Sometimes when people hurt others, they carry scars for the rest of their life. I have scars. I struggled with depression and that led to all kinds of things. And that didn't prevent me from forgiving. I have forgiven and I will live with those limps. I'm calling them limps, but I will live with that the rest of my life and I don't even care. Because I have learned to be free of the burden of hating others or myself or feeling bad toward others or bad toward myself. Now, why would I do that? Well, it makes you free in the present. So I am totally free every day, all day long, and it's wonderful and beautiful. Number two, it allows me to help others in a way that I couldn't even dream of doing if I was still burdened by guilt and shame. So this is an invitation. Forgiveness is a superpower. You have it. If you haven't developed it, then you're carrying burdens around you don't need to. The result of carrying those burdens is it will prevent you from making the money you want. It will prevent you from getting the happiness you want, building the business you want, finding the relationships you want, loving yourself and adding good to the world. It gets in the way of all that shit. And so if you are tired of that, let's learn. Now, I have 3 things to invite you to do. Number 1, I have a book called Forgiveness, A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. Go get it, read it, do it. Guess why I wrote that? It's what I learned in this process of forgiving others and forgiving myself. Oh, such liberation. And I thought, I'm going to help 1 million people with this. So I wrote the book. The second invitation is if you want help learning to forgive yourself and forgive others and unleashing the true power that you have without being burdened by all that guilt and shame, let's talk, because that's possible. And number 3, I would invite you to go to the URL on the screen, KellanFlukigerMedia.com. KellanFlukigerMedia.com. Why? Because there's a bunch of stuff there you can have. There's books there if you want to get those. There is an email if you'd like to get in touch with me. There's all kinds of things because my only mission, one thing and one thing only, I'm committed this year, and my year started October 14th, 3 weeks ago, to reach 300 million people and help you create the impact and the wealth that you deserve and that you crave by serving, creating products and services with your gifts, with your life experience, with stuff you already have. Why wouldn't you create your ultimate life? Why wouldn't you create a life you love? If you want to walk that path, let's talk. If you're happy where you are, then I love you to pieces and go and add good to the world with every breath. If you're sitting there with a yearning, knowing that there is more for you and that you want to be free of things that are bothering you and you want to add good to the world and help people and do all the stuff that we all say, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk. No more waiting, no more excuses. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.